We want to talk today about third conjugation future tense. And if you recall, future tense for first and second conjugation verbs is very easy to recognize. You've got the letter be in all the forms. Third conjugation future is a little bit different. So, third conjugation future tense is formed like this. Step number one, drop O from first dictionary entry. And we've seen that before with first or third conjugation present tense. But here's where it gets very different. We've got our singular and plural columns. We've got our first person, second person, and third person rows. And this time the endings we add look very different from the future endings you're used to. The endings are ace, et, amos, atis, ent. And you notice that there is no B in any of those endings. The key thing here is the letter A or the letter E before our usual kind of endings. I mean, we've seen S, T, M-U-S, T-I-S-N-T. We've seen that before. So right now we're going to do a little practice. You want to conjugate two verbs. We're going to take mitto, mittera, misi, missus, to send, and want to conjugate that one in the future tense. Then I also want you to take video, videira, weedy, weesus, to see, and conjugate it in the present tense. So we've got a third conjugation verb, because of the short ERE, to conjugate in the future tense. And then a second conjugation verb, which we know because of the long ERE, to conjugate in the present tense. So we're going to set up our charts, our singular and plural columns for mitto, singular and plural columns for video. We've got our first person, second person, and third person rows. So go ahead and pause the video and conjugate both of those verbs. Okay, what you should have done for mitto, if we follow the steps that we had before, we drop the O off the first dictionary entry, M-I-T-T, becomes the stem. And we write that down everywhere, that way you know you've got that correct. Then we just put on those new future tense endings. Mittam, mittes, mittet, mittemos, mittatis, mittent. Now, if you conjugated video in the present tense, you recall that from before, you drop the RE from the second dictionary entry, and VIDE is our stem. And then we add on the old present tense endings that we've had for a long time, and we get video, vides, videt, videmus, videtis, vident. And the reason I wanted you to conjugate those two verbs in those two tenses, I want you to notice something. Notice that mittet really looks like videt. Suddenly I've got a verb ending in an ET and a verb ending in an ET, and one of them's future and one of them's present. Or take first person plural, mittamus. Really looks like videmus. So suddenly we're going to have forms that look very much alike, and yet there are different tenses. And the only way you'll know the difference is by paying attention to conjugation. A second conjugation verb with an E in the form is present tense. A third conjugation verb with an E in the conjugated form is future tense. Well, let's see this in a sample sentence. So maybe we have something like this. Pridam videt et ad reginam mittet. So right now, copy that sentence, underline each of the two verbs in it, and parse them. Give the person, the number, and the tense of each. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. What you should have done would be to underline widdet and mittet are two verbs. And since widdet is a second conjugation verb, you would have identified that as third person, singular, present tense. But since mittet is third conjugation, it's third person, singular, future tense. Now listen to how these verbs that look very much alike are actually translated very differently. He sees, present tense, the lute. And he will send, because mittet is future tense, it to the queen. And that's third conjugation, future tense.